Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Today, I want to draw a comparison between how folks with alcoholism who are approaching that end where you're trying to do some controlled drinking instead of being willing to admit that you're an alcoholic. I want to talk about that feeling of control or wanting to control and how that's just not possible for many of us. And I wanted to contrast this to what I'm dealing with in stroke recovery. So there's a little bit for everyone here today on this episode. A little bit regarding alcoholism and the path to recovery, and a little bit about stroke recovery, particularly vestibular therapy, which is what I'm facing, and where the control comes in there. So we'll see what comes out of this comparison. For me, it made sense. Sometimes something makes sense, and when we try to explain it, it's hard to. So let's just see what happens. I'm not scared. I ain't scared. So for those listening who are in stroke recovery, Chapter 3 of AA's big book for alcoholics gives us insight into this futile attempt that alcoholics sometimes get into where they try to control their drinking. And the chapter talks about numerous strategies that alcoholics try. So they're like, I'm not an alcoholic, or I can control my drinking, so I'm going to, like for me, I drank Vela boxed Chardonnay. That was my go-to drink. So I did the same thing, this controlled drinking. I had no idea that I was just falling right into what all alcoholics seem to do. I shouldn't say all alcoholics, but many do. And that is to try to do some controlled drinking. So I decided, well, I won't be such a mess if I try drinking beer instead of wine. Or I'll make sure that I never drink before noon. Or some people, now I wouldn't have done this because this was a little extreme, but I'll only drink at parties. Or I won't drink liquor, I'll drink wine. So the list goes on and on as to how people try to cut back or control their drinking. And despite these efforts, the harsh reality remains that alcoholics cannot control their drinking, because it's not a matter of willpower. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to leave it up to our willpower and control the drinking. But alcoholism is a disease. And another way that we say this is that in the program we say it's the first drink that gets you drunk. And that is because we simply can't have one drink. I could not... even if I tried to switch over to beer, I couldn't get drunk enough. Because beer has less alcohol content, so I just drank more beer, and so it goes. So if I have had one of whatever drink it was, I would inevitably be drunk at the end of that time period that I was drinking. So it would end up being a drunken nightmare, and it all starts with just one drink. And that's why I can't have just one drink. And I hear it all the time that folks say, I just want one drink. I just wanted to have one drink to take the edge off. And that's exactly what happened with a friend of mine who was in my meeting. She said, I just want to take the edge off. And that was the last time I ever saw her. She ended up passing away. She drank herself to death, honestly. So, okay, we're going to switch gears. So, control as an alcoholic, we think that we can control everything. I felt like I could control people, places, and things. I felt like I could control this drinking obsession that I had, and I couldn't. It turns out I did not have control of anything. I couldn't even control my own emotions or reactions to people. I was just a ticking time bomb. So when I contrast this to the stroke recovery, particularly vestibular therapy, this is where control is actually an essential part of my rehabilitation. So it's interesting. Like, I started off alcoholism admitting that I could not control anything, and I'll get to this, but I approached my stroke and vestibular issues, vestibular migraine, vestibular disorder with the same approach. I was like, okay, well, if these activities cause me pain, then I can't do them. I'm going to abstain from doing anything. And as you all know, this got me to the point where I was not leaving my house. You know, I really am not very much leaving my house still, but I'm working on it. And so what I've been learning over the past month, and this is why this whole control thing is important to me right now, is I've been learning how to hold back, how to control. So everything I've ever learned in sobriety is I have to abandon that. And now I have to learn how to control myself, how to control, like, for instance, this past weekend, I did a couple things. I left the house. I did a couple things that is out of the ordinary for me. And I'm pushing myself. I'm trying to push myself, but not go too far. So one thing that we did is we took Autumn, my Weimaraner, to the Banfield, to PetSmart, to get, her allergies are really bad, and she's been getting bumps and stuff on her back. So she needed to increase her medication. I actually was going to take her in for an allergy test. We ended up not doing that. They recommended not doing that for various reasons. If you're interested in finding out why, you can email me at rachel@recoverydailypodcast.com. So we went to bring her, and then we started talking about Boris, our bulldog, and how he's going bald on both sides of his torso, I guess, if that's a torso. I don't know. It's like a bowling ball, so I don't know what you call what part that is. But on both sides, he's going bald, and so this amazing vet said, I'm just going to fit him in. You can leave Autumn here, go get Boris, and we'll have a look at him right now. And we were like, oh my gosh. So we actually took Autumn home and brought Boris in. So you can see, like, my day was building and building into additional activities. So I didn't want to not do it because I wanted to be present for whatever was going on with the dogs. So how did I control the situation? Like, how did I control my behavior during this outing in order to not trigger my symptoms? Well, while we were waiting for each dog, I sat on the bench I wanted to go around and look at the dog toys and look at the little dog clothes and all that stuff. But, you know, I suppose it's kind of like I can't have my cake and eat it too kind of thing. I got to go to the store, and that's unusual and great. I got to be there to find out from, firsthand what's going on with the dogs, and that was great. But I had to control how much I moved my eyes around, and so on. So I went up one aisle, and honestly, I didn't look at the sides of the aisle. I just, my husband was behind me, and he just told me how far to go. And then he said, it's on your right. So he was like, go halfway and it's on your right, because it's terrible for me to try to look at items on both sides. It's just terrible. It's nearly impossible to explain to somebody who doesn't have that. But that was the one thing I did because I wanted to get a new leash. And then other than that, I sat on a bench. So how did I make things more enjoyable for myself? Even though I didn't get to look around at all of the stuff, I got to pet all the puppies that came in. So I talked to the pet owners. I was probably the crazy lady sitting on the bench. I was like super talkative and talking to all the pet owners, asking them what breed their dog is and how much I would go walk. When somebody would weigh their dog, I would run up and see how much the dog weighed, because I was like guessing how much their dogs weighed and stuff. So I still made it fun, you see? So this is the kind of control now that I have to manage. Another thing I did yesterday, let's see, today's Monday. Yesterday, I went to the Silver Diner with my mom and my sister and my niece and my niece's friend and roommate. And so this was a big deal. I haven't been to a restaurant in quite some time. And I did sit down at a booth, and I was sitting there for just a few minutes, and my symptoms were like just going up immediately. So when my sister came, she asked me, "Are you sure you want to sit there?" And she recognized for me that was not the best place for me to sit, because there was a window in front of me and this strange glass that was making a weird design. And so I ended up, we all switched seats. This happens every time I go to a restaurant. If you go to a restaurant with me now, you have to like play musical chairs until I find my seat, which it feels kind of weird to have everybody have to move for me. But, it's nice that everybody does that. So I controlled where I was sitting so that I was facing a direction and had like a simple environment, as my vestibular therapist calls it. When I was looking from person to person as everybody was talking around the table, I really had to control how much my eyes are moving. It happens a lot when I'm doing this podcast. When I talk, I tend to move my eyes around a lot. So I have to, on purpose, start kind of staring in one direction or softening my gaze, because if not, I probably wouldn't be able to get through the episode, because when the symptoms get up high enough, then I have a hard time talking. Like I can't think of words and stuff like that. So I really do a lot of controlled behavior when I'm doing the podcast. And I feel like this podcast has been really helpful for me in the area of controlling my eyes, continuing to work on my speech and my language and my memory. Now, I do write a lot of stuff down because I definitely would not be able to put together a cohesive episode and keep my train of thought and keep my point coming across and pick the right words and all that stuff. So I create an environment that is going to help me communicate the message, because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm doing this is so that I can learn something from what I was thinking today in my recovery and communicate that to you all. So if I inhibit that communication by not setting myself up for success, then I'm not really achieving my goal for doing the podcast episode. So, when I'm in the middle of having fun, that is the hardest to remain vigilant and pull back when my symptoms start to intensify. But it's every time I get excited, my symptoms start going up really, really fast. So if I start talking or laughing, it will go up. I don't know what my eyes are doing when I'm getting excited and laughing. I'm sure that I'm looking around and stuff, but there is just an intense amount of control that I've been working on over this past month, and I'm learning a lot. I went to therapy today, and we practiced. I had to walk across the room while looking at something across the room and just keep my focus on that thing, and then walk backwards looking at that thing. So coincidentally, I was practicing this very exercise yesterday when I was wheeling Boris, our bulldog, in a new outdoor dog wagon that we bought. And I was, one of the activities I had to do at therapy was to walk backwards while looking far ahead of me and then at a card close up in front of me, and then I had to go back and forth. And I'm not going to do it too much because it's going to cause my symptoms, but I said, oh, this is exactly what I was doing with Boris when I was walking him in his wagon, because I was walking backwards to make sure he didn't try to jump out of I don't think he probably would roll out of the wagon, but I was looking at him and then looking in the distance and then looking at him and looking in the distance. So I have a perfect activity that Boris can help me with for vestibular therapy. So managing vestibular disorders, and to be clear, I have not been formally diagnosed. I scheduled the VNG test, which is in July. That's the soonest I can get in, and it's in Washington, D.C. So, but yeah, that's coming, and that's when I get a formal diagnosis. But I'm being treated by all doctors for a vestibular migraine and triple PD, the PPPD, which I've talked about in a previous episode. So managing these disorders requires a nuanced control over behavior. Like it sounds simple, if your head starts hurting, then just stop what you're doing. But it's not that easy. Because number one, I have to approach things slow. Slow and steady wins the race. There you go. this is exactly the case. So if I'm going to walk my dogs, I don't leash them up and just start trekking. Like, I need to walk slow in the beginning so that I can make it the whole way around. And I actually walked 2 blocks today. So I'm making progress. It's a lot of control of what my eyes are doing. I can't look around. I'm really just focused on being outside, which is not something, I think this is a form of mindfulness. That's what I'm thinking, is what I usually did when I would go outside is I'm just looking around. I'm looking at the trees. I'm looking at the, flowers and whatever's going on. And I can't do that. I can't walk down the sidewalk and look at all the trees and all of the, squirrels running around. I can't do that. So what I'm focused on is this being outside, my whole body being outside. And I actually ran into a neighbor. I did not run into her. I passed her and we stopped and started talking. She has a couple dogs too. And she said that she actually had similar symptoms due to a mold issue in her house. And what she did was this mindfulness meditation while she was walking. And the way it works is that you focus your attention on the bottoms of your feet touching the earth as you walk. And that's all you're thinking of. You're thinking about what your feet feel like as they walk on the earth. And I thought that was a great suggestion, so I'll probably try that when I think of it, when I'm outside walking. But that's the same sort of thing that I was doing today, is really taking in the sensations of my body, feeling the wind, feeling the warmth, feeling when you walk into the shadows of the trees, the shift in temperature, and really taking everything in that way, rather than what I'm used to, which is all vision. It's all vision. I'm usually just darting my eyes around and looking at everything that there is to see. And that will come in time. Or if I want to, pick one thing I want to look at and look at it. I particularly enjoyed focusing on cherry blossoms. So I would just take a look at a blooming tree and I would focus on that. And when I actually got to it, I could smell the blooms. So that was really, it was great. It was great to be outside. So it's difficult in this situation to just stop if I'm getting symptoms. I have to instead instill some sort of control. Imagine if you're in the middle of doing something fun or doing something that you need to get done and you get symptoms, and your goal is to keep the symptoms at a certain level. It takes a lot of, I'm starting to make it be more like a game because I have to have fun, or else, what's the point? So, and just like, I was thinking a comparison, just like when my mom used to tell me to not throw my dirty clothes on the floor, she told me that a million times before I actually had a behavior adjustment. It sounds straightforward when mom tells you to stop throwing your clothes on the floor. If you've been throwing your clothes on the floor for 5 years of your early life, then it's going to take some time for you to learn to not throw your clothes on the floor. Unfortunately, it took me a bit longer than what is, I think, reasonable. And I think I threw my clothes on the floor. Gosh, I must have pissed off my roommate in college. Because I really never kept the floor completely clean until I moved into the house that I'm in right now. And so that was 3 years ago. And I'm 49. That's embarrassing. So it takes time, right? To learn things that that's my point. To learn things that you're used to doing. Unlearn them, I guess. I'm sure my mother would agree with me that it takes me a long time to unlearn something. So this is where the journey of someone with alcoholism, though, diverges a bit with someone from stroke recovery, right? So an alcoholic, no amount of behavioral control can change the outcome once they start drinking. The drinking starts. The disease takes over. But alcoholism, like any other chronic disease, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. There's nothing to do but to stop it from the beginning. Don't have the first drink. So this is, that one thing that's similar between alcoholism and vestibular symptoms, though, is that once it starts, it doesn't stop until I pass out. That's the one thing that's similar. I'm always trying to come up with the similarities between my two recoveries. And the only thing that I could really tie together that's the same is that as an alcoholic, if I have one drink, it is game over. And I will not stop until I die or pass out. Seriously. My vestibular system, I should just say pass out. Okay, we're just going to say pass out because I'm not going to die from my vestibular symptoms, as far as I know. So with alcoholism, if I have one drink, it's game over. I'm just gonna keep drinking and drinking until I pass out. And moreover, if I go back out and start drinking, I'm going to be worse off than I was when I stopped drinking 8 years ago. I shouldn't say 8 years ago yet because it's not April 28th. But vestibular symptoms, as soon as those symptoms start, if I keep doing what I'm doing that is triggering those symptoms, it will just continue to climb until I seriously have to pass out. Like I cannot function anymore. And that's the similarity, is that I just drive myself into the ground. And sadly enough, I've done it with both of them because I just can't seem to accept this loss of control. So in both journeys, you're dealing with a lack of control, but they really require opposite approaches. In vestibular therapy, I'm learning to gain control to manage my symptoms effectively. I'm learning to manage my behavior in order to manage the symptoms. In recovery from alcoholism, I have to just accept loss of control. I cannot drink at all, or I will go into, I'll drive myself into the ground. I have to step away from drinking entirely. And this is how I was approaching my vestibular symptoms. I just stopped doing anything. I've talked to you guys about it. Like, I can't do anything. You remember I was talking about I can't ride a bike. I can't walk. I can't watch TV. I can't go on the computer. I can't do anything. I can't sit in a room and have a conversation with somebody and look them in the eye. Like, that's how bad it was. So I stopped doing everything. And maybe that was needed in the beginning. I don't know. I didn't know how to handle it. It's like when I stopped drinking, I stopped going anywhere that had alcohol. But slowly, maybe this is a similarity too, slowly you can introduce triggers a very little bit at a time. So when you stop drinking, you can slowly, I didn't go to bars or anything where there was drinking in the beginning when I stopped drinking. But slowly I went to my first wedding. I went to my first happy hour. I went to, you get what I'm saying? And so with vestibular therapy, I'm slowly introducing these triggers one at a time as well, very slowly. And while I do this, similar to going to a happy hour as an alcoholic, I expose myself a little bit. I do a self-check. See if I can stay in that situation or I need to leave. And it's the same with vestibular therapy. How am I feeling? Can I stay here or do I need to call it quits and go rest? It's for me, it's fascinating to reflect on these two different challenges and the different strategies, yet there are places that they converge. In the end, it's really practicing self-awareness, self-care, and reaching outside of myself for help because I can't do it alone. And it's more than I can't do it alone. It's I don't want to do it alone. I don't need to do it alone. Life is so much easier when I don't do it alone, when I don't try to do any of it alone. All recoveries that we live in on a daily basis demand us to find a place of acceptance, understanding this is the way that I'm going to have to do it. And I need to have a deep commitment to my personal health. I need to be gentle with myself. I love that saying, and I've been saying it more and more. I heard it a lot in sobriety, but I've been saying it more and more in this stroke recovery over the past 10 months. And it's been a long road for me to actually implement that, for me to actually just slow the heck down and be like, I now on a daily basis, I'll go to my AA meeting and then I take the dogs out for a walk around the block. And then I come in and I'm like, okay, Boris and Autumn, it's time for breakfast. And we just kind of do our thing and make sure that we feel like we're doing something, that we are something, that we have purpose. Me and the dogs. So as I wrap up today's episode, whether it made sense to you or not, that's okay. Thanks for showing up. Chronic conditions require us to learn our boundaries and limitations and implement strategies with professionals that truly work for our individual situations. I have been at this for a few years, heavily over the past 10 months. And I just want to try to be an example. If you're getting frustrated, if you've been doing this for a few years. I went to a vestibular support group, and there was a new gentleman that came, and he was saying, it was like he was speaking my truth. He was like, I've been doing this for 3 years. I've done every test I can. I've gone to every specialist I can. And he was so frustrated. I've tried everything, and I feel like I haven't moved an inch. And what he needed was to relate to somebody else like him. That's what it sounded like he needed, because he wasn't saying anything different than what I've been dealing with, the same exact thing. But I've been able to sit in a comfortable spot in my recovery, and that is absolutely only because I have found people like me. And I keep showing up. I keep coming back to all these support groups. I keep seeking, and I'm staying committed to my recovery. He said, and it broke my heart last week, he said, I just want to give up. And it really broke my heart. He lost his wife right at the beginning when his symptoms started. I didn't say anything because, of course, I'm not in the position to advise him on what's going on, but man, it sure seemed like it was started by stress. And I've heard over the past month how close of a link between anxiety and stress there is to vestibular disorders. And that's what it seems like to me. And the doctors they don't know why he's experiencing that. And I'm just like, in that few minutes that he explained his story, it was pretty clear to me. I mean, he lost his wife, and that's right when it started. But as I was talking to my niece yesterday about her headaches, she's been having chronic headaches as well, and seeing lots of specialists, getting so many tests done, and they don't know why. They don't know why she's having these headaches. And she said the exact same thing that I said to my neurologist, which was, I don't want to keep putting medicine in my body, like prescription drugs in my body. I want to know why. I want to find out what the root cause is. And over time, I'm starting to recognize that I think I know what the root cause is for mine. I may never have a doctor confirm that, but I really believe that it's because of the many strokes that I had in my cerebellum. But I've gotten to a point, I think, that just going to these vestibular therapy and going to the ENT, where they've been able to categorize what my symptoms are that I'm feeling, that has been a big win. It's been a big win to go in and talk to somebody and have them say back to me, yes, I've heard this before. I mean, that was what I needed. I needed somebody to say, you're not crazy. Yes, I've heard this before. So my suggestion, my advice, I don't know what, I try not to give suggestions, but is to just keep coming back, keep seeking, stay committed to your recovery. Giving up is not an option. You are your biggest fan, you are your biggest advocate. If you give up, Nobody else is going to push for you. In a lot of these situations, even if somebody else pushes, like in alcoholism, doesn't matter how much my family wanted me to get sober. I'm the one who needed to do it. I'm the one who needed to be committed to my own recovery. I'm the one who had to keep coming back to AA meetings. I'm the one who had to keep seeking a higher power and keep seeking a solution for myself. So thank you for tuning in to the Recovery Daily podcast. And if you're feeling alone, you aren't alone. Keep coming back here. If nothing else, keep coming back here. I'm here every day, and I'm talking about real ugly stuff that I encounter in recovery. So thanks for coming, and I will talk to you tomorrow.